This is just Zach and Spiritual.
You've worked with a lot of different people with this collaborations. Is there anyone who stands out as someone you've particularly enjoyed working with? And we've yet to work together, but is there anyone that sort of stands out, whether you've learned something from them, you've learned a different way of writing, an analytical skill, a way of looking at research, perhaps that's different, or you just enjoyed their style? Is there anyone that kind of stands out?
Yes, it's a difficult question, more difficult than you think. It's a good question, but more difficult than you think because I've worked with so many, so I'm racking my memory in terms to answer you. I'd say, from my own perspective, and you've just asked me that anyway, how I have experienced that. I started off slowly, as with most things I seem to have, a bit of a slow maturer in the analytics field.
Okay.
So I struggled at school with mathematics, and I struggled at university with mathematics. Why did I pick a different degree? And I struggled with statistics. So I had to work very hard at it. So when the time came that I started publishing, that remained my weak point. Analytics, data analysis, knowing all the software packages and, all the methods, statistical analysis methods that you could use. So I would say I always partnered in the beginning with somebody who's strong in that field because I needed that. Mm. And very often that person is strong in that field, not so strong in the conceptualization field.
Yes.
Which I made my forte, and to this day I'm very strong in conceptualization, the theory building part, able to string stuff together, constructs, scale, design, stuff like that, survey design. So there's been a few people who've been very good at that. I'd rather not mention names if you'll forgive me, because I'm going to forget somebody who's actually more important. Since then, I have to say, in the last, that's why I call myself a late maturer, I've surprised myself in the sense that I've actually felt driven and confident enough to acquire some of those higher order skills. So I can now do structural equation modeling. I can now do latent class mixture modeling. And that's only, fairly recent development. And I was probably pushed into that direction because of my current appointment, where there's a compelling need, and I didn't say that right in the beginning. I'm not allowed to publish any lower than a journal because it's not recognized for me. So that is my job specification. And as we said earlier in our discussion, that is very difficult to achieve, period, for anybody, including myself. Yeah. So I thought the time is there that I have to acquire those skills myself, which doesn't mean, I'm not saying I'm now going the sole author way again. I still partner with people who are strong in analytics, but I now understand better than before what they're saying, why they feel that method A is better than B, better than C, etc., etc. So I'm now, more knowledgeable than I was in the past about this, and that knowledge is power.
Yes.
Especially if you're very strong in the conceptualization side of things. If you also nearly up to that level in the analytics field, that completes you largely as a researcher. And I'm not saying I'm the complete product, but I'm much more so than I used to be.
I think that's quite incredible, actually, is, you were very well aware of what your strengths were. And I think actually more importantly for life, it's also very humbling to recognize where your weaknesses are, because that allows you to figure out who you wish to work with and particularly why as well. For me, like, my skills have been, I'm not an amazing writer by any means. It's definitely gotten better, and I think the PhD process definitely helped that quite a bit. But I know certain methods and I understand what's going on there and how to interpret the results there. But writing them up to for an audience to read is something that I particularly wasn't strong at. And I realized that in my own deficiencies, I needed to find people who were good at telling the broader story, because, you know, it's not good enough for journals to just have, here's a bunch of results, because that's the who, what, when type stuff. And where journals need a story, they need a why should an audience care about this work. You have to be able to do that. So in the same way to you, I'm trying to work on my writing skills, not to become a sole author, but so I can edit and provide feedback of the stuff that has been written, besides just bringing forward, you know, sometimes data or sometimes the analytical skills. So I think it's a real credit to you that you've done that as well.
Yes, I mean, if I agree with everything you've just said. The data supports the argumentation, which comes from the conceptualization to build a new theory or replicate something, etc., etc. So it probably is, and I hate to go to extremes, but maybe for illustrative purposes this is okay. It's probably a bit more easy to acquire analytical skills, which is very often recipe and menu-driven stuff, than that deeper understanding of sometimes very complicated theories and how they link together and how you can build a conceptual model to solve a problem that the world has or the field has. And I think, you know, not to be too hard on yourself in that sense, that comes with time. And when we now author a team, I almost automatically assume that role because I'm comfortable with that. I can quite quickly, because I know the shorter cuts by now, even acquire the IP that I need to acquire to understand the new, call it theory, etc. So I've done many of those things in recent times, and I've certainly, right now I'm working on a project that has a very, very complicated, it basically combines structure equation modeling and latent class mixture modeling analysis as well. I've never done that before, which means, you know, we are now certainly analytically, you know, at the top of the game more or less, in terms of what some journals look for, because some journals, and this we haven't touched on, really, forgive me for using the term, but they seem married to very sophisticated statistical analysis. And even if your paper is conceptually sound, your theoretical arguing, etc., your critical analysis of other people's works and why your research is necessary is of top-notch, but your data analysis isn't sophisticated or I even say sexy, they're not going to accept your paper. And I think that's not good, but that's how it is. So that compelled me to actually take that step, you know, into those quite sophisticated things, which I always thought was not quite necessary, but they are now for me.
I can see why.